The sea provides livelihoods for thousands of people in Belize. Yet, coastal fisheries, which support many traditional fisher folk, have declined in recent years due to increased demand for fish, habitat destruction, and increased tourism. Fishers can no longer make ends meet bringing in small, locally caught fish, which are becoming more scarce. Many fishers and managers are casting their eyes farther afield into deeper waters, which many see as the savior of the region's fisheries.
For the past maybe 10 years, the fishing industry has changed a lot. Before San Pedro, we had a lot of fishermen. Now we have a lot of tour guides. And fishermen that have been fishing for the past years cannot only fish in front of Ambergris Key, they go to the atolls.
Fishers are increasingly moving into the deep seas to meet the demand for fish. Younger fishers are also moving into the fishery as well.
I've seen a big decline in coastal fisheries, and a lot of fishers are moving to deep sea to do deep sea fishing. And if we doesn't try to do some research on the deep sea, it would be the same as what happened in the coastal fisheries. So we have to monitor, do some research.
It's based on seeing the shallow depleted, knowing that there was fisheries out there, and then explore further on the deeper banks. So we found out that there was a different species of fish out there.
Last year, most of my produce that came from down south and Belize City was deepwater grouper. And last season, from January to like around May, most of my fish was deepwater snappers.
Newly implemented managed access in Belize aim to conserve coastal resources by restricting fishers to 2 zones. However, the 9th zone is the deep sea, which is open to all fishers. This management scheme may have the inadvertent effect of pushing fishers into deeper waters.
And one of the questions we always have about these fish groups when we look at their sustainability of their fisheries is their life history, which includes things like their age and growth and their reproduction. And in particular for coastal fisheries, usually they're relatively short-lived and reproduce at a relatively young age for a lot of our coastal fishery species. But for groupers and snappers, especially deep water groupers and snappers, they tend to grow very slowly over a long period of time, and they reach sexual maturity, or the time that they start reproducing, at a relatively old age. And these two characteristics in particular make them pretty prone to overexploitation if we're not careful to get baseline data before we actually start to harvest these groups of species.
Pulling a grouper up from 200 meters is the equivalent of a scuba diver shooting to the surface from that depth. They get the bends. Protection of the species in these fisheries will not work unless we can close off important areas, such as spawning aggregations, to fishing altogether.
Our main concern is we have no idea of what we're dealing with, when even in the fisheries department doesn't know about it. So I would encourage any people, let's study it. Let's get a logbook about it. You know, it's a new fisheries for us.
Working with traditional fishers, we are conducting some of the first research on the deep sea species of Belize and the Mesoamerican reef. By studying the biology and distribution of snappers, groupers, and sharks that inhabit deep waters, we can start to understand how they might fare in the face of increasing fishing pressures. We can identify potential vulnerable species and put forth recommendations for management based on solid science.
This work is really exciting because it's the first concentrated effort to study the deep sea ecosystem in the Mesoamerican region. But it's also really important that we partner with local fishers to ensure that we understand the scope of the fishery and also where it's going in the future.
This research is yielding novel results that have implications for the conservation and management of finfish and shark populations in the region. We are finding new species of sharks and are providing the first records of many species in the country. Deep sea fisheries are often the last resort that fishers turn to when other resources have been depleted. But unfortunately, they can rarely sustain the high levels of fishing efforts that shallow fisheries can. By researching the species impacted by these fishers in partnership with deep sea fishers, we can help to ensure that the same story does not play out in Belize and the Mesoamerican region.